It's always risky, isn't it, to read too much into polls. However, some of the polls out this morning are pretty extraordinary. The Comres one in the Sunday Telegraph, for example, not only shows the Brexit Party beating the Conservatives in the European elections, but also a general election. And you would be on course for your worst ever result. I mean, what's your reaction to that?
Well, look, I think we're living through some pretty extraordinary times. This European election, which frankly nobody wanted or nobody expected, is going to be, in my view, a giant opinion poll as to the merits of Brexit. Whilst I don't think mainstream politicians can ignore or disregard the frustration of the electorate, and it's very clear that there is a great degree of frustration, the question is, what are we going to do about it?
What are you going to do about it then?
Well, it's for Parliament, I think, to get its act together and actually govern in a way that would honour the manifesto commitment, not just to the Conservative Party, but of the Labour Party as well.
You see,
Nearly 600 MPs were elected on a Brexit manifesto.
This is where I struggle, though, because listening to you there, you're just saying that how are you going to respond to these absolutely appalling polls for the Conservative Party, and it's effectively just by doing the same thing, by trying to get the withdrawal deal through. I mean, don't you need to change something?
Well, that's what's happening at the moment with the talks between the government and the opposition. I very much hope that something will emerge from that. I think it's incumbent upon MPs of all shades to realise that what we're dealing with here is a tension between the direct democracy of the referendum that most MPs voted for and parliamentary democracy itself. We need to resolve that tension quickly, and we need to remember that it is Parliament that is in the dock here, and we need to respond in a responsible way and deliver not only Brexit but also a sense of trust and faith in democracy and parliamentary democracy itself.
I mean, it's not just Parliament in the dock, though, it's a government in the dock as well. You failed to get it through, and if you know, looking at the polls today, I mean, you could be on course to lose your seat. Your majority is only a couple of thousand.
Well, look, I've always had a marginal seat, Sophie, and I work very hard in my constituency knowing that I'll be there at the wish of the electorate who I am proud to represent. That's been a reality of my life. I've never been complacent about my politics, and I'm certainly not complacent now, which is why I've been working extremely hard as Solicitor General to help get the deal through, and I'm going to continue doing my part as Justice Minister.
Is it time for the Prime Minister to send out a timetable for her resignation?
Well, the Prime Minister said that she's going to go once the first phase of Brexit has been delivered. That must mean the ratification process, the withdrawal agreement bill and all the parliamentary procedures that need to happen in order for phase one to be completed. Now, if that can be done quickly, then we have that timetable set out already. I don't think she needs to say any more about that. What we need to do is get on with the job, come together and get a solution for the British people.
The problem is that we don't know when that is going to happen, do we? We don't know when the first phase is going to be delivered or even if it will be delivered. And at the same time, we have a government that appears to be in paralysis. I mean, there hasn't been a vote in the House of Commons chamber for a month now. How long can it go on for?
Well, of course, don't confuse votes in the Commons with government action. There's plenty of work going on in my department and in health and in other departments of state that is making a big change to people's lives. The economy is in a good position. The deficit is being balanced. A lot of important work going on. I accept that Brexit, of course, drowns all that out. And like everybody else in the country, I want to move on. I want to see an end to this. And I think it can be done in this spring and summer if Parliament actually comes together and steps up to the plate and delivers.
I mean, talking about moving on, it feels to me as if the Conservative has got a bit of an existential problem going forward. You have to decide what kind of party you want to be, what kind of people you want to appeal to. I mean, what kind of politician do you think the next leader of the Conservative Party should be?
Well, look, I'm looking for a leader who will embody the values of one nation conservatism. That is a true reach out, not just to some mythical centre ground, but to the common ground of politics in our country. The values of our country, which are open-minded, generous, believing in the rule of law, are all these issues, I think, that we need to emphasise. Britain's role in the world is still an important one, and I'm looking for a Conservative leader who can embody that and reflect 21st century Britain as it is now, with all its diversity. Oh, I'm not going to get into names, Sophie.
Worth a try.
I can assure you that I'm not going to be one of them. It's become a bit of a grand national field, and I don't think it needs any more crowding.
OK, there you go. Now, you've only been in your job a couple of days, but I do want to ask some broad questions about your brief as well. David Gauke, the Justice Secretary, has talked a lot about short sentences not being effective. So do you think that we lock too many people up?
I think the problem is, having sat as a part-time judge myself and made those decisions about sending people to prison or not, I can tell you that what we need is a very clear set of choices so that judges can have confidence that a community sentence will actually work in stopping that person from reoffending.
And do you think now they don't? Do you think that they can be seen as a soft option?
Well, it's not so much that, it's effectiveness and how they work. I think there are the reoffending rates are too high. Short-term sentences show, I think, about a 70% reoffending rate. Now, that's not just inefficient, it's bad for society. It means there are more victims of crime out there. I think we've got to redouble our efforts to actually not just look at sentencing itself, but improve the options in the community to make them more rigorous, to work harder to make sure that those reoffending rates can be reduced. That's the challenge which I'm up for.
I was keen to ask you as well about a story that's been in the news quite a lot recently about rape victims potentially being asked to give over their mobile phones to police, or else their case may not go forward. Do you think that's acceptable? Well,
I've been working as Solicitor General on the very issue of disclosure, and I'm very clear that there needs to be a balance between the need for a proper examination of the material in the case, but avoiding this sort of tick box exercise where people's private lives and irrelevant issues are being looked at. The law is very clear. Reasonable lines of inquiry should be followed.
And is asking for a phone a reasonable line of inquiry?
Well, it can be. It can be. There might be material in some cases that is relevant, but I think victims and complainants should be reassured that the law is clear. It's not about a trawl through everybody's private lives and should never be.
I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? With rape cases in particular, people are very worried about completely irrelevant things about your sexual history, your previous partners being brought to court.
Yeah, well, quite. And the rules of law are very clear about that. Unless there's a specific issue in the case, then barristers are not allowed to just go willy-nilly into people's private lives. I think striking the balance is the important message we've got to send out there. And, you know, as a minister, I can say to victims and complainants out there, the law is there to protect you, to protect them. And getting that balance between the need to look at relevant evidence, but not this massive one-size-fits-all trawl through private lives is vitally important for police officers and for prosecutors to adhere to.
OK. And then just finally, your predecessor, Rory Stewart, made a pledge, didn't he, a promise that got quite a lot of media attention. He said last summer that he would resign if he couldn't bring down violence and drug use in 10 prisons within a year. So are you going to resign? Does it pass on to you?
Well, look, I'm going to do it my way. I pay tribute to Rory Stewart. He was an energetic and passionate prisons minister. I bring nearly 30 years of experience in the penal and criminal justice system to bear into my new role. I'm going to do it in my way. I can be held accountable for prisons and probation, and I know I will in Parliament and in the media. But I'm going to carry on the hard work that he started. I'm going to redouble the efforts, not just in those prisons, but also in the over 100 prisons that we have in our system, and to help our hard-working prison staff and prison service in reducing violence and also reducing drug use in our prisons as well.
So if you're doing it your way, just very quickly, what are you going to do differently?
Well, I'm going to focus on the whole system, because as I was saying to you earlier, Sophie, I'm particularly interested in the interplay between prison and probation. And those first 24 hours after a prisoner is released are vital hours that should not be lost. It's often things are dropped, things are not done, which can lead to reoffending at a very early stage. We've got to get that through the prison gate process absolutely right.
OK. Robert Buckland, thank you very much for being on the programme today.